I have a really interesting update for you on hemp, the science of medicinal marijuana. My name is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger. I'm the Lab Science Director of CWCLabs.com. I'm also the founder of naturalnews.com. So I'm a longtime investigative journalist and researcher into natural medicine. And more recently, over the last couple of years, I've really poured into the science of analytical testing. In my laboratory right now, for example, we run an LC-MS time-of-flight system, which is it's a mass spec, obviously, based on liquid chromatography. And yet the time-of-flight system does a full scan of the entire spectra thousands of times a second during the chromatography elution from the column. In other words, it's an extraordinary instrument for finding unknowns. And I can mine the data that comes out of that for unknown molecules, looking at mass to charge ratios, M plus H, retention times, fragmentation patterns, and other things like that. And I'm not gonna go total geek on you here, so don't worry. My point is, I've been really studying hemp extracts lately, and these are low THC hemp extracts, by the way. I don't handle the psychoactive components. It's not legal, and it's not even my area of interest. I'm interested in the medicinal aspects of the non-psychoactive constituents of the hemp plant. The CBD, the cannabidiols, the cannabinol, cannabidiolic acid, various cannabinoids that are incredibly powerful. And I'm here to tell you that as a food scientist, I am absolutely blown away at the complexity of this plant and also its efficacy in being such an amazing, healing, curative, restorative plant for humankind. I'm even convinced at this point. I've been studying the molecular structures and the transformation of the molecules. What happens where you have carboxylic acid from the plant that is then transformed into a non-esterified form of the molecule that is psychoactive in the case of THC or non-psychoactive in the case of CBD, but they have the same number of elements, they have the same molecular weights, they're just arranged slightly differently, and one can change into the other under certain conditions. I am convinced there is something that almost seems to be intelligently designed about this plant. It is almost as if this wasn't just some random Mother Nature mutation that sprouted out of the dirt. It's almost like, and I say this metaphorically, but it's almost like God himself put this plant on this planet to heal humanity. It is so extraordinary to me as a nutritionist and a researcher and now a food scientist. As I'm peeling away the layers of this plant, it's blowing my mind. And I'm not a user of it in terms of THC. I don't actually smoke marijuana, never have. I don't use psychoactive compounds of any kind. I'm a research scientist, but I use non-psychoactive components such as CBD. But I am blown away by this plant. It is the complexity and yet the delicacy of it is so far beyond anything that I've found in any other superfood or healing plant, from turmeric to resveratrol found in red wine and grapes and so on. This is more complex than anything I've seen in bee pollen or spirulina or, just any superfood imaginable, from chia seeds to, you name it. There's nothing like hemp. It is, I'm just astonished. I'm astonished at how these things transform from one form to another. For example, out of the raw plant, you have THCA, which is a carboxylic acid, esterified form of THC that is not psychoactive, but once it is burned, i.e., smoked or heated at high temperatures, the carboxylic acid tag along, if you will, on the molecular structure is released, and it becomes pure THC, and it becomes extremely psychoactive at that point because it fits like a lock and key arrangement to certain receptors in your neurology, but not just in your neurology, also in other organs around your body. And I believe there are parts of this that give it a potent anti-cancer effect, a potent anti-seizure effect, and many other extraordinary effects like a CBN, the cannabinoids, is like a sleep aid. It can help you relax. And meanwhile, the CBD, the cannabidiol, is anti-seizure and anti-epilepsy, and it helps people even who have facial tics or uncontrollable neurological events. It helps them relax and regain control over their neurology. And just looking at how this plant produces this, it is difficult for me as a food scientist to believe that this is just pure chance, pure accident. It's as if this was designed to heal humanity. And I didn't expect to be saying that. I didn't pre-decide this and then start looking at the plant. This conclusion came to me as I began to do the science. You know, I'm doing the chromatography. Today, in fact, I was looking at some of the different forms of the molecule that exists at the mass overcharge ratio of M plus H at about 315.23 to 315.24 atomic mass units. And you get this whole array of peaks in a chromatograph display. You get CBD, and then you get some THC at some point, and then at a much higher mass, up around I think 359, you get CBDA with a carboxylic acid, and you have these other peaks in there that might be CBGs or CBNs. They're so many of them have similar masses that they might look the same from a mass point of view, but they elute at different times in the liquid chromatography columns. So you can see them. You can see them if you use the right instrumentation. And yet, many of them share the same molecular elements. They have the same number of carbons, the same number of hydrogens, and the same number of oxygens, for example. And they have the same molecular weight. It's just that they're arranged differently. They're connected differently, which is just a fascinating metaphor for what this plant can do. And if you think about hemp, you have to ask yourself this question: how does this plant synthesize these amazing healing medicines? How does it do it? I mean, for example, if you look at THC, all it is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. That's it. That's all it is, okay? It's carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in a certain formation, in a certain structural pattern of connectedness. That's it. There are no other elements in it. So how did a plant, first of all, where does it get this stuff? Where does it get the carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen? Well, the answer is it grabs the carbon right out of the air. And it grabs hydrogen and oxygen. It can actually get that by breaking apart water, for example, or getting carbon from many other sources, hydrogen from other sources. The plants are actually extracting elements from the natural environment, from the soil, from the water, and from the air. There's carbon in the air, right? It's called carbon dioxide. And if you have carbon dioxide, you have oxygen in that molecule as well. The plants can take that, and then they break it apart, essentially, and then they use the oxygen and they use the carbon, and they bring in some hydrogen, and they make THC. Think about that. That should blow your mind. It is an actual synthesis that is being conducted by this plant. It is manufacturing medicine. And it's doing it without a patent, without a lobbyist in Washington. It doesn't charge you royalties. It doesn't require FDA testing and approval to be what it is. It builds these medicines because that's in its nature. Scientists to this day they have no idea how these plants pull molecules out of the air and rearrange them into these molecular formulas that are powerful anti-cancer medicines. They have no idea how this happens. I mean, yeah, I guess some of them might be able to sort of name some of the some of the plant processes, but it doesn't mean they understand them. You can say, those are magnets over there, but it doesn't mean you understand how magnetism works. Just giving something a name doesn't mean you grok it, so to speak. So the synthesis of these medicines is happening inside these plants, even when these plants are very, very tiny. Almost from the first moment that they sprout, they come out of the seed, they begin to produce powerful medicines that can help save humanity. And they do this automatically, naturally, with no demands and no inputs on your part other than just the sunlight they need for the energy, the air that they need for materials, the water, the soil. That's it. They do the work. There are many people in our world today who are looking for answers. There are many societies that are looking for answers to health, societies that are going bankrupt from healthcare costs spiraling out of control and prescription painkillers and opioid addiction killing people left and right, and people dying from cancer. And they're looking for answers. And you know what, people? The answer is growing as a weed. It's in your own backyard, probably, for some of you on purpose, some of you accidentally. It's in the forests. It's in the fields. It grows like a weed all across many regions of North America. And it is there for the taking. It is the answer for many, many cases of cancer, many cases of epilepsy, many cases of even psychological disorders or sleep disorders or nervousness. It is an amazing, powerful medicine that is so abundant and so effective and so affordable that the governments of the world had to criminalize it. Think about that. The governments looked at this plant, and behind closed doors, they realized this is so powerful. This is so therapeutic. This has so much incredible medicine available for virtually no cost that we have to ban it. We have to criminalize it. We have to make sure that people don't have access to this medicine, because this medicine might put the drug companies out of business. This medicine might allow people to heal without having to go see a doctor all the time and pay all that money to the health insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies and the hospitals and the diagnostic companies. My God, if people could heal themselves by eating, smoking, drinking, absorbing a weed in their own backyard, then how the hell is the sick care industry supposed to make any money? You see. And so they criminalized a plant. A plant! A plant that has been part of this nation's history since its founding. And existed long before that. A plant that delivers to humanity so many answers on health and medicine and economics and agriculture and nutrition and fibers and materials for construction. Even polymers can come out of this plant. This plant is God's gift to humankind, and humanity is so incredibly stupid and idiotic that they criminalize it. To protect all the other interests, to protect, oh my God, you gotta protect the cotton industry, and you gotta protect the opioid pharmaceutical industry, and you gotta protect, all these other monopolies and cartels that are making money by depriving you access to this extraordinary healing plant, which is hemp. The more I've come to understand about this plant, the more angry I am that the governments of the world have systematically and deliberately denied humanity access to this astonishing solution. And now, more and more, I get it. When I used to see like weed-smoking hippies running around at festivals talking about how hemp was going to save the world, and I thought, these dudes are high, man. But now, as a scientist, I actually get it. I get what they were saying. They were high, but they weren't wrong. Okay? They just went at it from a different angle. They were smoking it and feeling something, and it was part of their little culture and society, and that's fine. I've never been against anybody doing having a recreational pursuit of a relatively mild drug like that, but that's not my focus. My focus has always been the nutrition and the science, and now that I'm getting into the science, it's so fascinating that I'm coming to the same conclusion as the high hippies. It's like these people were totally right. This is a miracle medicine for humanity. This plant can save humanity, and we've only begun to tap into this. Who knows what else is in there? I'm looking at this plant. I'm looking at the mass spectra on the time of flight system. I see stuff in there. I don't even have any idea what it is. It's like there's 1,000 molecules in there that have yet to be really discovered and documented and understood for their potential medicinal or nutritional values. And typically we, in the lab science, looking at hemp, we only look at 5 molecules. That's right, 5 molecules. It's the cannabidiolic acid, the CBD, the THC, and then the carboxylic acid form of THC, the THCA, and then the CBN, the cannabinols. That's 5 out of 1,000. And yeah, maybe those are the most important 5, but what else is in there? What other uses could there be for that plant? And what's really fascinating is to think about the interactions here. How can these molecules interact with other molecules from other plants? Medicinal mushrooms, for example, or turmeric, for example. How can these interact also with the gut biology, the microbiology that's living inside you, microbes that actually transform molecules and chemicals into other forms inside your gut? How might CBDs or THC in an edible, non-psychoactive format, for example, how might these molecules interact with healthy gut flora to resynthesize and reform powerful anti-cancer medicines right in your own gut? See, these are the kinds of questions that I'm asking as a food scientist. Can you swallow these molecules from a hemp extract, and if they're paired with the right microbiology inside your body, might they actually manufacture inside you potent anti-cancer medicines or healing medicines that have an effect far beyond anything ever imagined in the raw plant itself? We have to start thinking in terms of the synergistic effects of these molecules and how they interact with the bacteria in your body, or how they interact with other curcuminoids or phycocyanins, or all kinds of other molecules in other plants and superfoods and nutritive sources. Because we're talking about synergy here. We're talking about harmony. See, this is what's beautiful about nature. This is one thing that I've really come to learn and observe being a food scientist, is that when you combine toxic synthetic chemicals made by man, they become more and more toxic. But when you combine harmonic natural molecules from nature, they tend to become more and more harmonious. Like building chords in a choir and adding octaves of the chords that are all working in harmony together. This is what happens with natural molecules. It tends to work that way. Whereas, again, synthetic toxic molecules from man tend to multiply their toxicity as they are combined. And this very concept, the thing I just mentioned, completely escapes the entire realm of modern science. The chemicals are typically only tested in isolation, never in combination. Toxicities are never really measured or tested in combination. And the synergies of healing nutrients or superfoods or plant extracts are almost never tested in combination either. And you know why? Because mathematically, there are too many combinations. You start putting together all the permutations and combinations. You start combining 3 chemicals and then 4 and then 5 out of a list of thousands. How can anybody test all of these things? You can't. You could do one clinical trial every month and you wouldn't finish this testing for 1 billion years, frankly. Or more. I haven't really done the math on it, but it's a huge, huge number. Longer than humanity is going to be here, that's for sure. At some point, you have to realize that it is the principle of molecules from Mother Nature that work in synergy naturally, because that is their origin and that is their purpose. You see, I believe the hemp plant has an actual purpose, an intention, if you will, of being here on this planet. It is not an accident in the same way that you are not an accident. And I am not an accident. This plant is here with a purpose. It has an intention. There's a plant consciousness involved here. And this plant wants to be healing medicine. That's what it wants to be. You know, in the same way that an oak tree wants to be an oak tree, and it fulfills its role and mission of being an oak tree. You know, and a dandelion wants to be a dandelion, and it actually fulfills that purpose and that role and that morphic resonance with other dandelion plants from which it came. The hemp plant has a morphic resonance with other healing plants. It wants to be healing hemp. It wants to produce these molecules that literally, physically, if you were able to measure this, they literally hum in tune with the neurology of the human brain. There is an actual physical or chemical harmony taking place there. It is a musical choir. When you combine the healing molecules of the hemp plant with human neurology, you are creating a symphony of spontaneous healing. And if you could hear it, if you could translate the chemistry that's happening inside your blood, if you could hear that, it would sound like a glorious, beautiful, musical, like a choir, like a large church choir praising God. You know, I mean, it would be an extraordinary thing to hear. And yet, if you could hear, for example, chemotherapy damaging brain cells, it would be a cacophony. It would sound horrible. It would sound like death and disharmony. You know, all those drugs, the SSRI drugs, antidepressant drugs and psychotic drugs and addictive painkiller drugs and all these synthetic chemicals, pesticides and herbicides created by man, they sound like death because that is what they bring you. They sound like destruction. They sound like chaos because they do not exist in harmony with the human body. So these are just some observations. And no, I'm not smoking this product right now. If you're wondering like where all this is coming from, I'm inspired by what I see in the science. End of story. I am inspired by it. This is changing my entire understanding of what is nutrition. And this is not just simply about vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. That just barely scratches the surface of how plants can interact with our neurology, our consciousness, our biology, our genetic code to unleash the pattern of spontaneous healing that is embedded in certain portions of our genes and so on. This plant is changing my worldview of what is possible, and it's even it's forcing me to ask really, really big questions about where did this plant come from? Where did humans come from? You know, and by the way, this is going to sound really, really out there, but I don't give a crap. There is a theory of the origins of life on our planet called transpermia, and there are many in astrological sciences who believe that human life, DNA in particular, was not an accident, that it was seeded onto our planet, that there is DNA, they believe, flying all around the universe, and that this DNA is engineered as binary genetic code. It is, in a sense, computer code for the expression of biology through protein synthesis and other things. They believe that this did not happen spontaneously on Earth, that this kind of code for life is spread throughout the universe, and it is so commonplace that every planet that can even potentially support life ends up doing so because of this theory of transpermia, this DNA being strewn about all across the universe and surviving the cosmic rays and so on and so forth inside asteroids and meteors and things that land on the planets. So this is their theory. Wouldn't it be interesting if every planet, and this is a what if question. I'm not saying I believe all of this. This is not my theory, but I'm just saying what if what if every planet that was seeded with these seeds of life by who knows who, incredibly advanced civilization, I don't know, a divine being, who knows? But all the planets that were seeded with the seeds of life were also seeded with the seeds of healing. What if literally hemp is a cosmic gift to humankind? What if whoever's running around like Johnny Appleseed in the universe and throwing DNA all over the planets, what if they're also dropping some hemp seeds along with that to say, yeah, if these primates ever grow up and expand on this planet, let's give them something to heal their disease with, and that's hemp. I know it sounds out there, but I'm just asking this question. I think that we need a deeper science to look into the history of where this came from and how it could have possibly become a plant with such extraordinary properties for humankind. I don't know how this happens randomly. I don't think this is pure chance. I think there's something about this that is somehow working in harmony with the neurology of humankind. This is beyond random chance. This is intelligent design, I'm telling you. Somebody's behind this. Some intelligence, some advanced consciousness is behind this somehow. I think that's the case. So that's what I'm going to look into. In any case, that's just conjecture. I admit it's kind of a wild theory, but what if it were true? Where did we come from? Where did these plants come from? They can't all just be random and yet be so finely tuned to our neurology and biochemistry. Something is interesting there. So I'm going to look into that some more. These are just some initial thoughts. I'm going to explore this more as a scientist, but also as an open-minded person who understands the bigger picture of spirituality, of consciousness, even of cosmology, the origins of life. All of these big picture questions, I think, are found in maybe a slice of a holographic way, represented metaphorically inside the hemp plant. I think that what's happening inside hemp is, in other words, a microcosm version of what is actually happening in our cosmos. And I know even that may sound loopy. You might think I'm high, but I swear I'm not. There's something extraordinary about the universe inside this plant that I believe reflects the extraordinary properties of the cosmos. I think there's a link. So I'll keep exploring that. You can follow my work at cwclabs.com. My name's Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, and just to reinforce this, I'm not a user of the psychoactive components of this plant. I never have been. I've never used psychoactive drugs. I don't even drink alcohol. Okay? It's just the way I am. But I am very, very interested in exploring the science and the structure and the harmonics, if you will, the molecular harmonics in this plant and what it means for humanity, the origins of botanical healing on our planet, and the future of the human race. I think it's all interconnected. Thank you for listening. You can check out my podcast at healthrangerreport.com. Click subscribe now to stay informed when I release new videos.